So maybe we can get started with a prayer as more people are joining us, so we can keep on time. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and then we'll do all the introductions after that. Welcome, dear friends, and thank you for joining us today. I would like to introduce our session today, if you allow me. So, welcome to the Northern Virginia Baha'i Center Cultural Heritage Series that is put on by the Center Events Task Force. And we used to do this, of course, live, but now we've kind of been doing it on Zoom. And for this series, we basically have been covering some topics from different cultures and exploring them and kind of discovering all the immigrants that have come to the United States to bring to life the promise of pluribus unum, which is out of many one. Today, we're very lucky to have a special father and son team with Fuhua and Nadeem Huang. We also know Fuhua as Fu, and it's a pleasure to have them, and we're very lucky that they're going to be talking about the Taiwan, the culture, and the Baha'i Faith. And to tell you a little bit about Fu and Nadeem, of course, I knew Fu and Mandana from our in the early 90s or mid 90s when we were youth in the Northern Virginia area, and we all used to hang out. And now they have two beautiful sons, and Nadeem being one of them. And as far as Fuhua, they live in Northern Virginia in Vienna. Fu was born in Taipei, Taiwan, and he moved to the United States when he was in his early years with his parents. Fu currently works in the area of computer networks, information technology, and cybersecurity. He graduated from Virginia Tech, Georgetown, and Cornell universities with concentrations in engineering and management. He's an avid tennis player and enjoys playing with the family dogs. And Nadeem is an aspiring senior at James Madison High School in Vienna. And after graduation, he's planning to attend Virginia Tech and join a special government program that is available for those interested in pursuing a career in cybersecurity. So without further ado, we're going to turn the floor to dear Fu and Nadeem. and listen to their beautiful presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Peiman. In just one moment, I'll share our screen for everyone to see. All right, and just make sure, can you guys see the screen? If I can get some thumbs up, head nods.
Yes, yes, we can.
All right, so hi, my name is Nadeem. Along with me today is my dad, Fuha, or Fu. We'll be presenting the culture and history of Taiwan, and we'll also be talking a bit about Baha'i Faith in Taiwan as well.
Right. Okay. Well, we all have heard of the name Taiwan, I think. Many products are made in Taiwan, such as electronics, machinery, and believe it or not, pineapples are produced there as well. But I'm not sure everyone knows where it's located. Taiwan is basically a small island off of the eastern coast of China, and it sits between Japan and the Philippines.
Here's just some basic country facts about Taiwan. It's an island 100 miles off of the coast of China, and it's mostly mountainous in the east with sloping plains in the west. The capital of Taiwan is Taipei, which is located in northern Taiwan, and the official language spoken there is Mandarin, or Chinese, as some people call it. Taiwan has a population of about 24 million, but the land size is fairly small. Overall, Taiwan is slightly larger than Maryland and Delaware combined. The currency used in Taiwan is the new Taiwan dollar, and $1 US is equal to 30 new Taiwan dollars.
All right, so now we'll try to cover some highlights of Taiwan's history. In the 1500s, it's commonly believed that European, likely the Portuguese, their sailors passed through Taiwan and recorded the island's name is Ilha Formosa, or Beautiful Island. And in the 1600s, the Dutch established a base in Taiwan, and they used the base for the production of grain, rice, and sugar. Between 1600s and 1800s, the Ming and Qing empires in China took control of Taiwan after driving out the Dutch. About 1895, the Qing Empire ceded sovereignty over Taiwan to Japan after the defeat in the first Sino-Japanese War. And basically, Japan ruled Taiwan from that point on until 1945. Between 1911 and 1912, the Chinese Revolutionary War overthrew the Qing Empire and established what's called the Republic of China, or ROC for short. The Republic of China started to govern the Chinese mainland from that point on. Chiang Kai-Shek, a Chinese political and military leader, led the Republic of China between about late 1920s up until 1975. In 1943, Chiang Kai-Shek met with US President Franklin Roosevelt and the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and they jointly declared that Taiwan shall be restored to the Republic of China. And at that time, Taiwan was still governed by Japan. And as we all know, in 1945, the United States, UK, and Republic of China called for Japan's unconditional surrender in World War II. And after their surrender, Japan ceded Taiwan to the Republic of China, which at that time governed both China and Taiwan. So in 1948, a civil war broke out in China between the Republic of China government and the Chinese Communist Party, CCP for short. In 1949, after being overrun by the CCP, the Republic of China's government and about 1.2 million Chinese migrated from China to Taiwan. In 1979, with the rise of China, the United Nations recognized the People's Republic of China, the PRC, synonymous to CCP, as the legitimate representative of China. This forced the Republic of China to withdraw from the United Nations. Now, between the 1980s and 1990s, Taiwan went through reforms and social changes that transformed it from an authoritarian state to a democracy. And in 1996, Taiwan held the first direct election for president, and Lee Teng-hui became the first president of Taiwan. In 2016, Taiwan elected the first female president who's currently serving, and her name is Tsai Ing-wen.
All right. So enough with the history of Taiwan. Let's dive into the culture of Taiwan. Taiwan is primarily based on Chinese and Japanese cultures, and that's due because both China and Japan occupied the country for a considerable amount of time. However, it has recently evolved towards Western influences, especially the United States, as Taiwanese children in elementary school are being taught English as a mandatory second language. Taiwan is also traditionally conservative. And what that means is that in the gestures they do, such as handshakes, here in America, a handshake is just a common greeting. In Taiwan, it's a sign of a strong friendship, while a hug in Taiwan is also a sign of being very intimate with someone, a sign that's typically seen between family members or loved ones. And then similar to most Asian cultures, Taiwan is patriarchal and patrilineal, meaning that the male figure is perceived to be the head of the family. Despite that, though, the family unit remains strong and will always be ready to help each other. This can be especially seen in marriages and businesses. Most businesses in Taiwan are family-run businesses. Other examples of orientation towards the family include the importance of maintaining stability within the household, Taiwanese meticulously observing and practicing family rituals, and respecting family elders and staying loyal toward the family is considered vital in most families. Needless to say, in Taiwan, education is very important, and competition to get into the best universities start at a very young age. And finally, my favorite part of Taiwan's culture is their strong love of food. And you'll see that moving on. Sorry about that.
All right. As Nadeem indicated earlier, food plays a big part in Taiwan's culture, as it does in many Asian cultures. Family always enjoy a good meal together. There are many varieties of Taiwanese food, with some of them deriving from Chinese food primarily. So in the next couple of slides, we'd like to introduce you to some of the more notable dishes that you may not be aware of. So in this picture that you see in front of you, this is the beef noodle soup. In Mandarin, it's called 牛肉面, or beef noodle. It's a warm concoction of flour noodles, braised beef, and slow summer broth. It's usually topped with baby bok choy and scallions, and it can come as, mild to super spicy, which is one of my favorite.
Next, we have minced pork rice. This is called lu rao fan, or it directly translates to braised meat rice. It's basically made by braising meat with soy sauce, Shaoxing wine, and a plentiful amount of rock sugar. In Taiwan, this is a traditional comfort food for most families.
All right. Here we have oyster omelet. It's specifically Taiwanese, and in Taiwanese it's pronounced oat jian. It's a I'll say chewy glutinous omelet, made with eggs, oysters. There's some greens, tapioca starch to make it sticky, and umami sauce. Umami sauce is typically made from soy sauce or fish sauce with other mixtures. People say it has the same effect as MSG, which makes the food more tasty, in my opinion.
All right, moving on, we have stinky tofu, also called cho tofu. It's fermented tofu with a repulsive odor, in my opinion. And the tofu can be braised or deep fried. It is often served with chili or soy sauce, and is usually sold as a snack or side dish. For most connoisseurs, the smell apparently enhances the experience of eating it. But most people either love it or hate it. You can guess which one I am. Right.
All right. This is also one of my favorite. It's called the sticky rice dumpling, or in Mandarin, it's called zhongzi. These dumplings are typically eaten during the Dragon Boat Festival, which falls on the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar. So for us, it's sometime between late May to mid-June, let's say. They're made of glutinous rice or sticky rice, stuffed with different fillings and wrapped in bamboo leaves. They can be cooked by either steaming or boiling. The fillings can be sweet, such as mung beans, red beans, jujube, which is Chinese dates, and yam. And of course, the filling can also be salty, which includes like sausages, chicken, pork, mushroom, and eggs.
Next, we have tofu pudding, which in Mandarin is called do fu ha, but I just call it do dad. And it's made from a very soft, tender, and light tofu. This dessert is served in sweet ginger or sugar syrup with cooked peanuts, and can either be served hot or cold. And last but not least, we also have bubble tea or boba tea called Zenzu Naicha, pearl milk tea. This is one of my favorites on the list, and it originated in Taiwan in the early 1980s, and is an iced brewed tea with chewy tapioca balls called boba or pearls. As you can see, kind of these black circles in the picture. And other toppings can be added as well, such as various types of jelly or fruits. So as you can see, Taiwan has a variety of unique dishes that you could try, and you should try if you ever find yourself eating at a Taiwanese restaurant.
This is not the Olympics, but Taiwanese love the outdoors and exercise. People walking, jogging, and doing Tai Chi can be seen throughout the island. Small parks are all around for people to use. Some individual sports Taiwanese enjoy include badminton, table tennis, standard tennis, golf, taekwondo, judo, and cycling. Team sports are also popular, especially baseball and basketball. Taiwanese youth frequently participate in the Little League World Series, and there are several Taiwanese baseball players who played in Major League Baseball as well. As for basketball, there's one Taiwanese NBA player, Jeremy Lin, who played in New York and Toronto and won an NBA championship title there as well.
All right, moving on, we're going to talk about some of the attractions in Taiwan. I think it's important to recognize some of the popular and special attractions that they have there. One of the largest and most well-known would be Taipei 101. Taipei 101 held the record for being the tallest building from 2004 to 2010, and is currently the 10th largest building in the world. The building boasts a total of 101 floors, hence the name, and has installed an elevator that travels up to 55 feet per second. At the center of the building lies a pendulum that allows the tower to stand even during Taiwan's frequent earthquakes. And at the top of the tower lies an observation deck for visitors to view the city of Taipei, which is something that's especially popular at night when the city is illuminated by all the lights.
All right. This is pictures of a night market. Night markets are a part of the unique culture of Taiwan. In Taiwan's early days, people would get together in temples or around certain buildings to buy and sell products. In the present day, night markets are held throughout the streets of Taiwan. It combines Taiwan's local culture with window shopping, dining, amusement, and street performances. As you can see, night markets are often packed with people shoulder to shoulder, and everyone enjoys going there.
And moving on to hot springs in Taiwan. This is very similar to Japan's culture. And the Taiwanese, similar to Japan, they believe that hot springs offer many health benefits, such as raising energy levels and treating chronic fatigue, eczema, or arthritis. Currently in Taiwan, there are more than 100 hot springs located throughout their mountainous region. Here's a couple of images of those hot springs.
Soothing. All right. This is the Chiang Kai-Shek Memorial Hall, and it's a monument commemorating the life of the former leader, Chiang Kai-Shek, who was a strong 20th century military and political leader in both Taiwan and China. He was responsible for establishing the Republic of China on Taiwan in 1949 after the Chinese Communist Party won the Civil War and took mainland China.
Right. And then next is the Longshan Temple, founded in 1738 by Han immigrants from Fujian. This temple has served as a municipal, guild, and self-defense center, as well as a house of worship. These days, it is one of Taiwan's top religious sites and a prime venue for exploring both Taiwan's vibrant folk faith and its unique temple arts and architecture.
All right, this is Jufeng. Jufeng is a mountain town in northern Taiwan that was a mining town during the gold rush of the Japanese era up until the mid-1950s. The town boasts a stunning view of the Pacific Ocean and has many picturesque winding streets. The streets are filled with many traditional tea houses. The atmosphere has a vintage Japanese feel to it, which obviously came from Japan's influence during their occupation of Taiwan. Now let's move on to religions in Taiwan. Most Taiwanese who are religious practice some form of Eastern religion. Buddhism is the most popular religion, followed closely by Taoism. Christianity is the third most popular religion, and I would say approximately 1/5 of the Taiwanese population are non-religious. Buddhism, just briefly, is one of the world's largest religions and originated about 2,500, 2,600 years ago in India. They believe that human life is one of suffering and that meditation, spiritual or physical labor, and good behavior are the ways to achieve enlightenment, or what they call nirvana. Taoism is more a philosophical and spiritual tradition of the Chinese people, which emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao. In Taoism, the Tao is the source, the pattern, and the substance of everything that exists around us. Comparatively, the Baha'i Faith is a relatively new religion, and very few Taiwanese are members of the Baha'i Faith. So now let's focus a little bit on the Baha'i Faith in its early days in Taiwan. Baha'i Faith was first introduced in China, in Japan, and then onto Taiwan. Record has it that the first Baha'is arrived in Taiwan in 1949. And these were 4 Chinese Baha'is from the mainland working as government employees in Taiwan.
However, the first Taiwanese Baha'i was Jerome Chu, who learned about the faith in the US in 1945. After becoming Baha'i, Mr. Chu received a letter from the Guardian, which ended with a message in his handwriting. And this is from the Guardian. May the beloved bless your efforts, guide your steps, remove all obstacles from your path, and enable you to promote effectively and under all conditions the vital interests of his glorious faith. Your true brother, Shogi.
Interest in spreading the Baha'i Faith in Taiwan started as part of the 10-year crusade, and that was from 1953 to 1963. And in 1954, at the beginning of the crusade, the first pioneers to Taiwan arrived. They were Mr. and Mrs. Suleimani. The Suleimanis spent the rest of their lives in Taiwan. The Suleimanis were originally from Iran, but they had lived for about 28, 30 years in Shanghai prior to their arrival in Taiwan. The Suleimanis decided to settle in the southwestern city of Tainan in Taiwan.
And moving on December 15th, 1953, there was an article published in the Chonghua Daily News, which had a photo of Abdul Baha and some history and principles of the faith. There is no doubt that this was the first publication about the faith in any newspaper in Taiwan. And later on, in 1954, the Suleimanis started study classes after they settled in Tainan. And this was due to the Taiwanese not being familiar with the Baha'i faith. Several months later, on the evening of Nowruz, 1955, 4 people declared their faith. In the picture shown, you can see Mr. Jerome Chu holding a calligraphy of the greatest name. Next to him is Miss Soleimani, and behind him is Mr. Soleimani.
Right. In 1953, Mr. Zakrullah Hadim visited Taiwan. He was the first hand of the cause to do so. Mr. Hadim made several trips to Taiwan thereafter.
Right. A short bit about Mr. Hadim. And here we're going to be talking about the first local spiritual assembly in Taiwan. The first LSA was established in 1956 in Tainan. And if you take a close look at this picture, you might see something a bit unexpected. In this LSA, there were actually 10 people elected. And that's because there were 10 Baha'is in the community, and they tried holding an election, but could not break the 10-way tie among themselves. However, they had been asked to submit a photo to the American Baha'i News of their local spiritual assembly. And this is the photo they gave. They finally wrote to the Asian Teaching Committee of the United States about their problem. And the committee suggested that they draw 10 slips of paper, one being blank. Mr. Soleimani ended up drawing the blank slip.
All right. This is probably the only letter that we know of which was written by the Guardian or on his behalf to the Baha'is of Taiwan. The letter congratulated the establishment of the first LSA in Taiwan. Nadeem, can you read the letter?
I can read the letter. It says, Mr. S.A. Suleiman, dear Baha'i brother, your loving letter of May 8th came duly to hand, and its contents were presented to the beloved Guardian. He is greatly pleased with the victories won by the self-sacrificing and devoted friends in Formosa. The establishment of the first spiritual assembly of Formosa in Tainan is of historic importance. It is the first of the universal institutions of the faith to be established in that unique and most promising country. It is a center of the spiritual gifts which must now come to the people of that area. The friends must now rise with greater effort than before to carry the glad tidings in all directions. The beloved Guardian will pray fervently for the friends, collectively and individually, that the blessings of the Holy Spirit may be within them at all times, and that their services to the cause of God will be most successful. May the friends become the spiritual life-givers of that country. The Guardian appreciates the article written by Mr. Chiang and wishes you to thank him for it on his behalf. He hopes Mr. Chiang will be able to arrange further publicity for the faith. The Guardian greatly values the devoted, dedicated, and sacrificial services of you and your dear family to the cause of Baha'u'llah. He is sure the beloved Master will reward you richly for carrying the banner of the faith so high and in such widespread areas. He assures you of his prayers. He sends his loving greetings.
All right. Here in November 1956, the first teaching conference was held in Tainan. Miss Agnes Alexander attended the conference from Japan and stayed there for 3 weeks. At that time, she was an auxiliary board member in Asia. Miss Alexander subsequently visited Taiwan 2 more times as a hand of the cause.
Right. And then in 1957, the first Taiwan summer school was held in Tainan. About 20 Baha'is attended from 4 localities, including Tainan and Taipei. As the faith was not registered, official government permission was necessary to hold the summer school. Since November of 1955, the Tainan group had been trying to obtain official recognition of the faith. According to Mr. Soleimani, they visited the Tainan mayor's office, the social department of the provincial government in Taipei, and the interior ministry of the central government in Taipei. The social department head explained that there was freedom of religion in Taiwan for religious groups which were officially recognized, but to that date, only Christianity, Buddhism, and Islam had that status. An appeal was made in December 1956 to the Interior Ministry and hand of the cause, Mr. Haze. With the Soleimanis visited the ministry in the spring of 1957, but official recognition was not immediately granted. Nevertheless, permission was later given to hold the summer school.
All right. In this picture, we see Keith and Edith Danielson Craig. They were the second couple of pioneers to Taiwan. They arrived and settled in Taipei in 1958. Their arrival made it possible to form the local spiritual assembly of Taipei, which was the second local spiritual assembly in Taiwan. The LSA formation in the following years was on and off. Although Taipei had steady enrollments at the time, the number of Baha'is did not increase much. The Baha'is tend to move out, as with many who left Taiwan to continue their studies in the US.
And on January 18th, 1963, the first Baha'i marriage was performed at the Tainan Bahá'í Center. The bride was Miss Yen Chongqing, and the groom was Mr. Yang Suthao. Mr. Yang was a member of the Tainan Local Spiritual Assembly, and 5 members of his family were Baha'is. In total, 22 friends attended the wedding celebration. An official government recognition of the Baha'i marriage was obtained in 1973.
Here, the National Spiritual Assembly of Taiwan was established in 1967. Its office was in an apartment on the 3rd floor of a new building at the time, in a good location in downtown Taipei. The purchase price was $9,000, which was a considerable sum of money in those days. The National Spiritual Assembly of the United States paid $6,000, and the rest came from the National Spiritual Assembly of Northeast Asia and other donations. It was bought in time to hold the Nauru celebration there in 1967. A certificate of registration for the Baha'i Faith as a religion in Taiwan was granted to the National Spiritual Assembly in December 1970.
Currently in Taiwan, there are around 16,000 Taiwanese Baha'is with 13 local assemblies. Each Baha'i community in Taiwan has a dedicated study group where they meet several times a week and go through Ruhi books or Baha'i letters. The youth in Taiwan are also very dedicated to serving their communities and have helped clean family-owned businesses and community parks, while also demonstrating the virtues they've learned in their Ruhi classes.
All right. Well, since the Olympics are currently taking place in Japan, we'd like to share with you a quick video of Taiwanese Baha'is performing at the 2017 Summer University Games hosted in Taipei, Taiwan, in front of over 14,000 people. This was probably one of the largest live performances by the Baha'is of Taiwan in front of an international community. Please enjoy.
介绍源自于中东地区的巴哈伊教。这个新兴的宗教在全世界有700万名信徒，中心思想跟儒家所说的世界大同相当类似，因此早期巴哈伊教在台湾也被称作是大同教。接着有请巴哈伊教代表合唱祝祷诗歌。Praise be Baha'u'llah, praise Him forever. Praise be Baha'u'llah, praise Him forever. 中途之年梦醒时，要一更强的和平一面对抗它。永恒意识则比一更大的爱去消除它。永恒意识则比一更大的爱去消除它。呀巴好浪吧，呀巴好浪吧，赞美吧好浪，永远赞美他，赞美吧好浪，永远赞美他。Praise Him吧好浪，Praise Him forever. Praise Him吧好浪，Praise Him forever. 呀巴好浪吧，呀巴好浪吧，呀巴好浪吧，呀巴好浪吧。
热烈的掌声，感恩我们巴哈伊教带来温馨的祝祷诗歌。
谢谢和谐的歌声为大家带来幸福的感受。
All right. And with that, that concludes our presentation on Taiwan.
Well, first, I think we need to give you a round of applause.
Thank you.
And
Yeah.
really thank you for, such a well-researched. I'm very surprised that you were able to find so much information about the faith in Taiwan. That is very impressive. And, we wanted this time to have one of our dear youth to do such a presentation. And it is so wonderful to see that you have risen to this occasion and that our faith is in very good hands. And it was such a delightful and great presentation. So thank you both.
Thank you.
At this time, we would like to open the floor to any questions. You're more than welcome to either just, maybe we can stop the share.
Yep.
And then Armin has her hand up, and then so anyone else, you can either raise your hand and unmute yourself and speak, or you can put a question in the comments and we can start the discussion. So Armin, please go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for this. I'm crying right now, and I don't usually cry. That video Taiwan has always been very near and dear to my heart. In late 1980s, I went there there was a big travel teaching project there. I mean, I called the Youth Committee of America and I said, I want to go somewhere teaching. And they said, go to Taiwan. And they had this very organized program. And we would, they send us to these villages, and that we weren't allowed to speak English. So, and I had a translator. And every day we would go out teaching. So many people declared. But the problem was, I don't know if anyone ever went back to them. All these high school students. These villages we would go to, they hadn't seen foreigners. People would line up and take pictures with us. It was amazing. And then the sweet potatoes that they made in the street. Oh God, I miss it. All the food. And I love Taiwanese, I'm telling you. And then I saw this video you showed. They're speaking, they're singing Baha'u'llah. Oh my God. So I was there for 4 months. Beautiful country. I loved it. And then the motorcycles. I don't know how we all didn't die, but you would go around the country on motorcycles without helmet and everything. It's a good country. Thank you so much. I mean, I was probably your age, but back then, but it was a good project. And I remember people saying, high school kids would just come straight to our humble Baha'i Center. It was, I don't know, on 10th floor. But they would come, but these Mormons, they had all these fancy churches. No one would go there. Everyone would come to the Baha'i Center, But it just brought everything back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Armin. Any other questions or comments that anyone would like to ask? Mary, go ahead, please.
Right, thank you, Payman, and thank you so much, Hu and Nadeem. That was just a really informative, really wonderful presentation. Lots of audio visuals and ways to engage everyone in the audience. I just was curious. I don't know if you've been able to go visit Taiwan, since I've assumed you have, and I'm curious about the kind of the communities there, if you've been able to visit with them, and what activities have really been more engaged, if you've seen study circles and children's classes, and how different are they from, say, town of Vienna and greater Vienna? Is it very similar in terms of the way that they engage the youth and the children and the adults? And I'm curious to see if there's anything that we might be able to learn from their own experiences. Thank you.
Okay. So when we went back to Taiwan, we always try to attend one of their events. So I think the first time we went back, probably how long? 6, 7, 8 years ago, when it was a little bit smaller. So at that time we went to the National Center, and then we're trying to find out, where was feast. We lived in, my parents lived in northern Taiwan, sort of in a little bit more mountainous area, but we went to downtown Taipei, found the Baha'i Center, got a contact, and then basically the address, and we just showed up, like out of the blue. We showed up at feast. It was interesting enough. It was a Persian couple that they were partly working in Taiwan as an English teacher or in the schools. I think it was for the Taipei International School. And they've been there for a couple of years. We identify ourselves as Baha'is from Virginia, and then we're here to attend feast. This couple, they were very welcoming. We had probably a group of 15 Baha'is. Some of them were expat, or Americans. I think 4 or 5 were Americans. One of them actually retired in Taiwan and living there. And then the rest of them were Taiwanese. And I would say the feast was conducted in the same manner as we conduct here in Virginia, believe it or not. They went through the same process, spiritual, administrative, social. It was, you know, the message might have been different. You know, it's issued by different national entities, but the process was the same. We also visit the Baha'i Center when they had events. At that time, I believe it was a Ruhi and a children's class at the same time, because again, parents and kids, right? At the same time at the center, they were doing separate activities. And although we were more or less observers at this event, but they were planning on activities expanding out to greater Taipei and engaging people. So the activity is the same, and the, you know, the planning, the ideas of engaging in community were the same. So it was very interesting, Mary, that you brought this question, because it, to me, you know, all the way out on an island in the Pacific to here, we're all following the same message. We're all following the same process. We're all using the same tools, you know, to promote the faith. So somehow everything is working the same way.
Thank you. Nadeem, do you want to share any thoughts from your trip to Taiwan?
Well, I've always went whenever my dad went to Taiwan. So I don't have anything too much to share from my perspective, though. I remember we went to Feast. I think this might have been more recently. And it was just like a little apartment complex kind of. And we went into this stranger's home, and we sat down with other strangers, and we talked as if we've known each other for years. I thought it was a very cool experience just to be with people who are just so like welcoming and kind to complete strangers. I thought that was cool.
Thank you for sharing that. Next, we're gonna go to Tina. She has her hand up. Go ahead.
So Mary really asked the question that I wanted to ask, but since my hand was still up and I couldn't figure out how to lower it on my phone, I'm just going to say, I think it's really great. I've attended a few of these events, and I think it's really great that there was a youth speaker this time. And hopefully in the future, there could be more youth speakers. And I think it's really cool that a parent and youth did it together, because maybe like if there was some, you know, some anxiety on the part of the youth, this way maybe it helps and it makes it easier. So I just wanted to say thank you, especially to Nadeem Jun.
Thank you, Ms. Tina.
Tina, you have a few youth, so you may be getting a call very soon.
We just don't have anything to say about anything important. That's the problem here.
Thank you. We had another hand up. I may have lowered it by mistake. Who had their hand up next? Was it Shazeen, or I'm sorry, did I? Or
I had. I don't know if it's someone else's turn.
No, go ahead. It's you.
I have a non-religious question. What is the relationship between China and Taiwan economically and politically? And also if China has any claim, territorial claim on Taiwan?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's, you know, it's in the forefront of news these days. I would say that, you know, from China's perspective, and I'll quote what they print is basically Taiwan is a renegade province that that shall be reunited with the motherland. I'll say from Taiwan, I would say their position is less confrontational. Obviously, you know, they are a democratic. They have a democratically elected government. And I think Taiwan feels like, you know, after the Civil War, you know, the government at that time, the Republic of China government, moved to Taiwan, and then a separate government was established on mainland China. So I would say, you know, from a Taiwanese perspective, the term, sometimes it's avoided, independence. It's not used, but every ideals or everything that's been done in Taiwan sort of suggests that they are an independent entity apart from China. So, you know, this could be as simple as North, South Korea, East, West Germany, you know, just a country separated by two political ideology. Now, politics aside, the economy is actually tightly intervened because there are a lot of Taiwanese businesses that actually establish their presence, factories, manufacturing or whatnot in China, right? You know, I would say, you know, the people, or at least a portion of the people in Taiwan, they have the same background as the people in China, except it's divided, right, by this political situation. I can tell you, for me, like my mom and dad, they were born in China, right? They consider themselves Chinese, but because of the Civil War, you know, they moved to Taiwan. Obviously, there's, you know, a separate population on Taiwan. They were the people that were originally there on the island, which is composed of a mixture of Chinese, original Taiwanese, Japanese, like mixture. But they may have a different perspective in the sense that they want more or less independence, given that they were not, you know, from China originally during the late 1940, early 1950 era. So, but I guess, again, let me just go back. Economically, they're fairly tied together, but politically totally different. And the belief of the people in Taiwan is they always talk about, hey, you know, there's going to be a war, or it may be a trigger point for World War III, you know, given how there's sort of expansionism ideas of China in the South China Sea. But the people in Taiwan feels like a war between China and Taiwan is probably unlikely to happen, or they've been under the threat of a war for so long, since, you know, 1949, that either they feel, hey, if there's going to be a war, or if there's going to be an attack on the island, it's been done a long time ago. But given that how, you know, their economies are somewhat tied together to a certain point, in globalization, right, of the economies, that a flare up of any sort would be detrimental, right, to both sides. Yeah.
If you think it's a national referendum in Taiwan, the majority will love to be reunited with China or not?
If there were a national, you know, I think they wanted to have a national referendum during one of the elections, but they never actually got there.
Right.
They are, you know, and it depends really on the presidency. There are probably two political parties and one on Taiwan. One political party is China leaning because they were originating from China, like myself. And then there's another political party that were Taiwan centric, the original people in Taiwan. And depending on the presidency, you know, the referendum occasion comes up, or at least for discussion. You know, I think given what is happening today, given the wider and larger support by the U.S., if there were a referendum, you know, I think they would vote for independence if they're allowed to have such a referendum, because there's a lot of pressure from China, right? There's some pressure from U.S. You know, when not sure if you know that when the United States and other international community recognized China as the government, right, for the Chinese people versus, you know, the Republic of China. At that time, in the U.S. Congress actually passed a law which sort of bind the survivability of Taiwan to U.S. support. So basically, you know, I would, you know, compare the situation is, you know, Israel in the Middle East, you know, small country, but then there's tremendous amount of U.S. support and international support, only because, you know, it is a democratic country has a strategic position within the Pacific Rim, right? I think, and this is just from my understanding, is if you look at where Taiwan's located, it's strategic because there is you'll see a fence, a border, right? From Korea, Japan, Taiwan, Philippines. It forms a wall, so to speak, right? For the U.S., for their national interest, perhaps, I don't know. You know, if Taiwan were to fall, right, then that creates a hole in that fence. And probably, you know, the U.S. is probably working hard trying to be, trying to support democracy in Taiwan, trying to support internationally when it can. So that's
no doubt about that. I fully understand that. United States, of course, it's the national interest of the United States to support Taiwan. There's no doubt about that. But I'm asking that about the Taiwanese themselves. Are they leaning toward Chinese, or they want to remain whatever they are now? That was the
right.
So that's why I put in the national referendum.
Right, and I'll say this from what the Taiwanese president indicated, right? And the Taiwanese president today, Tsai Ing-wen, she is pro-independence leaning, and what she has said is that, well, look at Hong Kong as an example, right? That's a preview of Taiwan, or what it would happen if somehow Taiwan is integrated with China. Basically, I think freedom, democracy will deteriorate, right? There'll be a certain amount of security lockdown on the island, and basically over time, the identity or the achievement that Taiwan has made for itself is just going to erode away. It's going to be all pulled back. So, you know, knowing that, or you know, reflecting on that message, you know, I would say most people would not welcome to be integrated back to China unless the political situation changes, right?
Yeah. Thank you. My last question is that what is the relationship between Taiwan and Macau?
There's no relationship. They're all part of China long time ago, and they were all basically divided up to other foreign powers. You know, Macau, I think, is Portuguese.
Portuguese,
right?
Yes.
And then
yeah.
Hong Kong was the British.
British.
Taiwan was Japanese, but then got folded back into China, to the Republic of China. So they were all at one point part of China, but they were all occupied by different foreign entities.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few more questions. I think Mary is next. Go ahead, please, Mary. Unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I think the situation between China and Taiwan and that relationship is hugely complex and very interesting. I wanted to ask about one of the earlier slides related to Taiwanese being more patrilineal. And so I think that's true of many parts of the world, but I'm just curious because Taiwan has been able to vote a female as head of state. I'm wondering, perhaps if you have some insight as to how that came about. So if Taiwan initially, you know, was considered and may still consider parts of it to be very patrilineal, male dominated, what do you think perhaps enabled a female to be elected as head of state in Taiwan, despite the history?
Huh, that's a good question. I think, you know, Taiwan history is a little complex. And I think it was when the country, if I even may call it, Taiwan decided to reform, you know, start reform and social changes in the 80s and 90s. You know, I can tell you before, Taiwan was locked down, right? Authoritarian rule was a nice way of saying military rule. Chiang Kai-Shek was a military leader, right? He, unfortunately, you know, they didn't win the Civil War, and then they have to move to Taiwan, an island. And, you know, you look at, you know, the distance between Taiwan and China, it's a very short distance, less than 100 miles, right? And that, you know, a lot of the changes since then, when they realize, hey, you know, we can't do things the old way, the traditional way that Chinese people long ago may want to do, and that they have to start opening up, have acceptance of other cultures, other countries, you know, perhaps for its survival, perhaps for trade. You know, I guess they came to a realization and made the decision that they had to change from the authoritarian standpoint to more democratic, right? And I think that change and being able to engage with other countries, cultures, and being able to open up and allow its citizens to travel abroad and allow international people to come into Taiwan, you know, that all occurred 1980, 1990, 2000, right? So slowly, or some would say inevitably, you know, changes was introduced based on what they see outside of the country and realized that there is a better way to develop the country. I think that's where, you know, as you said, Mary, how did Taiwan get the first female president? You know, I don't think that would even been possible given the structure it's set up traditionally, right? And right or wrong, I think Taiwan just recently permitted same-sex marriage. They recognize those as well. So it's in the forefront of these changes. And I think it's because of what they see as good outside of, you know, their outside the country and in the Western society. So I think it's the influence, right? It's the globalization, the influence of other countries and whatnot. And then they're just picking off the good.
Thank you. We have one more question from Marissa. Go ahead, please.
I would like to address my question to Nadeem. Nadeem, you're of mixed parentage, both Persian as well as, you know, Taiwanese. How was it like for you to go through this process of investigating the history of Taiwan, you know, looking into the history of the Baha'i Faith and all that? Describe.
Let's see. I think I was just curious at first. I was just curious about Taiwan, the Taiwan half of me. Typically, growing up, I knew a lot about the Persian culture. That was always like made very big, very exciting. Let's see. For my Taiwanese part, I didn't really know too much about it until like I went to Taiwan the first time. And every time after that, I slowly gained a bit more knowledge every single time I visited. So I thought this was really cool to start looking at its history and just kind of understand, I guess, I'm gonna call it the country, try to understand it a bit better than what I know before. I don't really know how to put it. It was just, I don't know. It was just kind of eye-opening just to see the other half of my heritage. It was cool.
Thank you.
If there are no other, is there any other questions or comments? If not, we really like to thank Nadeem and Fu for doing such an amazing job, like very similar to our past speakers like Mary and some of the others. So we're very appreciative. Hopefully we'll maybe switch back to the Baha'i Center and maybe have these both on Zoom and at the center, but we're trying to all figure that out. So we are going to go ahead and close, and then please look out for our future talks as they come up. We're going to go ahead and finish with a prayer. And again, thank you for all of you who also attended all the way from Canada. Nuri is even visiting there, and she was kind enough to join in. And we'll close with a beautiful prayer. I'm going to share my screen, and just bear with me, please.
O thou kind Lord, thou hast created all humanity from the same stock. Thou hast decreed that all shall belong to the same household. In thy holy presence, they're all thy servants, and all mankind are sheltered beneath thy tabernacle. All have gathered together at thy table of bounty, and all are illumined through the light of thy providence. O God, thou art kind to all. Thou hast provided for all, dost shelter all, conferrest life upon all. Thou hast endowed each and all with talents and faculties, and all are submerged in the ocean of thy mercy. O thou kind Lord, unite all. Let the religions agree, and make the nations one, so that they may see each other as one family, and the whole earth as one home. May they all live together in perfect harmony. O God, raise aloft the banner of the oneness of mankind. O God, establish the most great peace. Cement thou, O God, the hearts together. O thou kind Father God, gladden our hearts through the fragrance of thy love. Brighten our eyes through the light of thy guidance. Delight our ears with the melody of thy word, and shelter us all in the stronghold of thy providence. Thou art the mighty and powerful. Thou art the forgiving, who overlooketh the shortcomings of all mankind.
Thank you again, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for sharing your Sunday with us. And hope to see you all very soon.
And thank you to you too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Fuhua and Nadeem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All the
Fuhua and
best.
Nadeem. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.